Hello everybody, I'd like to welcome you all back to another episode of Let's Summarize Ministry. My name is Micky Wrote, and I'm here to discuss the prophetess Deborah. She is also the fourth judge that we will be coming across in this series, and I thank you all for joining us. We have reached a time in Israel of roughly 1195 BC. And we come to meet the prophetess Deborah. For her part in the cycle of judges, Israel will enjoy roughly 40 years of peace and prosperity before falling away and suffering enslavement yet once again. However, before we do get ahead of ourselves, let us discuss the times of a cool-headed lady that judged Israel. After Shamgar's victory over the Philistines, which leads to several years of deliverance. That's what I had written here. However, if we were to circle back to my last podcast, when I mentioned Shamgar, I've come to a different conclusion on him and his time frame with relation to Deborah. I have come to feel that Shamgar judged at the same time as Deborah. And I say this because in Judges chapter 5, it mentions Shamgar corresponding with a woman named Jael. And Jael, we will read about here later, was a part of Deborah's ministry. So, I have edited this just a tad. But Israel serves the Lord. They fall into sin and idolatry. Israel is enslaved. Israel cries out to the Lord. God raises up a judge, and then Israel is delivered. This is the cycle of despair that will haunt them for years to come. And it's just something that will repeat itself. It's something that we repeat on a daily basis, if we're to be totally honest. But the deliverance of the Lord through the judges, Ehud and Shamgar, have come and gone. Actually, I say come and gone. I wrote that, but again, I feel that Shamgar is judging Israel at the same time as Deborah. So, while Shamgar is down south and Deborah is to the north, that's what I do believe, we will see the Lord's people fall into the hands of a Canaanite king named Jabin and his head henchman, an army commander named Sisera. So we learn that the king and Sisera had 900 iron chariots at their disposal. Which that relevance lies in this, that the Israelites did not have access to instruments of war, leaving them vulnerable. See, this was before Israel had a king or an army. All right. So what's more is that once the land is conquered by another land, the conquering land, what they will do is they will commandeer the resources of the conquered land, and they will utilize that for their preferred territory. This led to 20 years of poverty and oppression before the sons of Israel were defeated to the point of finally crying out to the Lord. And what a lonely and miserable time that must have been for them before they finally had the courage and the ability to kind of humble themselves to the point of saying, we can't do this on our own. We must cry out to the Lord in order to raise up our nation. So that is where we enter the heroine judge Deborah. She is the wife of a gentleman named Lapidoth. We don't know anything about him. She was known to sit under her designated palm tree while the people of curiosity would come to inquire of the wisdom of God, because she was a prophetess and a judge of the words of the Lord found her ears. Now there must have been direction from the Lord, because we are told that she summoned a gentleman by the name of Barak. All right, B-A-R-A-K, and he was the son of Abinoam. And she gave him the direction to put together 10,000 men to go into battle. So we're not certain how long this took, how much direction this took. This may have taken a couple of years, but he goes throughout the land. He gathers 10,000 brave men to go into battle from the northern tribe of Naphtali, and he's going to march them to Mount Tabor to challenge the army of Sisera. Now see, the Naphtali tribe, who were the descendants of Jacob, they were known as fighting people that could be depended upon in battle. And this is convenient because that land is right next to Mount Tabor. So although Deborah assures Barak that the Canaanites will be delivered into his hands, he has his doubts, and he has cold feet for whatever reason. And he also tends to question his leadership skills because he's never taken an army into battle before. And so, because of his lack of faith in the Lord, she assures him that while she will accompany him, I'll go alongside you and I will keep you company and I will help guide you. But she lets him know that although I'll do this, the glory will be handed over to the hands of a woman. You will not get the glory, a woman will. And so he seems to be okay with that. He's not concerned. But the pair depart and they assemble the troops of Naphtali, 10,000 men ready to do battle for the Lord. Sisera, the head henchman, he catches wind of the assembly and he quickly dispatches his 900 iron chariots and his unit of men to battle. And they're going to go up against this ragmuffin, ragtag group of men of Israel. So, he surely underestimated the Lord's army because under the direction of Barak and Deborah, they were quickly facing defeat. Now, smelling loss and humiliation in the air, alright, Sisera cowardly flees for the hills to the tent of Heber. And he is a Canaanite, but he's not home. However, his wife Jael is. Remember, we've mentioned Jael a few times. I mentioned it in the last segment, and I've mentioned it this time. Now, in Judges chapter 5, we are told that Jael and Shamgar were together. It says something along the lines of, in the time of Shamgar and Jael. Alright, so that is what led me to believe that Shamgar was judging Israel at the same time as Deborah. Because now we have Jael. Now, this is the beginning of the end for the Canaanites and the start of a new beginning for the Israelites. Now, while this cowardly lion, Sisera, is abandoning his men, they are being slaughtered until not one is left. Thinking that he has found sanctuary in the tent of Heber, the Kenite, Heber's wife Jael welcomes him in. She comforts him with open arms and a warm blanket. He asks her for water. He's famished. She says, no, you shouldn't have water. Here, have some milk. So she gives him warm milk. What's warm milk going to do? What do you do for warm milk with a kid? It helps put him to sleep, right? So the warm milk puts him to sleep. As he dozes off, she sneaks over, grabs a tent peg, a mallet, and slams the tent peg down into his temple so far that his head is connected to the ground. A graphic image. But so it sticks to the ground, and soon after, Barak, this guy that couldn't do the job by himself, he needed Deborah by his side. He shows up because he had given chase. And so he finally shows up to the tent. And what does he find? He finds Sisera is dead. And this is the twist that we may not have seen coming, because when Deborah told him that because he didn't have the courage to go in it alone, that the glory would be given into the hands of a woman, we just assumed that it was going to be Deborah. But it's not. It's Jael. Jael is the one getting the glory because she is the one that's going to defeat the enemy of the Lord here. So, she says, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the honor shall not be yours on the journey that you are about to take, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hands of a woman. That's what she said. So at the time, we assume that it's Deborah speaking of herself, but Jael is lying in wait to do the Lord's will by eliminating a vicious threat against the Jewish people, fulfilling Deborah's prophecy that a woman will get the glory. And so now we move on, because this is not where the tale of Deborah ends. She gets 2 chapters in the book of Judges. The first chapter is the prophet Samuel's depiction of what's happened. The second chapter is her song. It is praises and glory that she sings to the Lord, and she is recounting the events taking place via him. So it takes us into the heart of Deborah as she sings praises to the Lord, giving him credit for all that transpired. Now, in the midst of glorifying God, she makes mention of what caused them to arrive in this predicament in the first place. The first indication of why they had fallen into despair, why they had fallen into slavery, and why they had been overrun. And the nation was in tatters, the highways were deserted, and the nation of Israel had been delivered into the hands of the Canaanites, all because the Israelites had sought other gods. So, it took decades before the stubbornness would dissolve enough to cry out to the Lord for deliverance. But now Deborah, alongside Barak, will assemble the warriors to fight the battle in the name of the Lord and unclinch the grip of King Jael. Now chapter 5 is her song, her praise to the Lord, giving him credit for all that has come to be, and showing him that she understands why they had to go through what they did. You see, she makes mentions of the different tribes and wonders why they failed to take action. She doesn't ask God, why did you let this happen? She asks, why did the tribes of Israel not take responsibility for their actions? Why did the Jewish leaders not hold the people responsible, not try to lead them back towards the Lord? Why did it have to get to this point? All right, but at no time does she blame the Lord for what's happened. All right, she takes the blame of the people. So she makes mention of the different tribes. All right, she says, why did you stay in your sheepfolds? Why did you remain across the Jordan? Why did you stay on your ships or sit on the seashore? It took two unassuming people to take action. Now, mind you, this is God's people. All right, the nation of Israel. This is God's nation. This is not an autonomous nation that is separate from God, such as our present-day nations. All right. God's present-day church is void of borders. Now, we all have national pride. We all have American pride. However, the Lord's church is not confined to the United States of America. We are everywhere. You know, God's chosen people are those who choose to hear, believe, repent, confess, be baptized, and remain faithful. Those are God's church. So, this is why their inaction is so cumbersome. So, they were God's chosen people, yet they remained indifferent in times of struggle. But back to the song. Now, as she sings, she reaches the point of battle and the imminent defeat of the Canaanites, the falling of Jabin. It is at this point that Deborah puts a bit of a sadistic twist to her song. All right, she takes the time to include General Sisera's mother, who I'm supposing she's never met, but she puts her into the mix and adds her to the song. As Jael is preparing to the warm milk to put the general to sleep so that she can puncture his temple, the mother of Sisera is impatiently waiting for her son to return from his plunder. She looks out on the fields, wondering what is taking her precious son so long to return. Unbeknownst to her, he's been killed. So he has met his demise, and yet she still waits on him. So Deborah concludes her song with a bit of a, that's what you get to the enemies of the Lord. She says, thus, let your enemies perish, O Lord, but let those who love him be like the rising of the sun in its might. So the story of Deborah is just another case of an unassuming individual taking extraordinary measures to be pleasing to the Lord. Caution was thrown to the wind, and trust was placed in God, to the God Most High. All right, so at no time did Deborah worry about the outcome, nor did she fret about what might be. So she had the utmost faith in God, recognized why Israel was in the shape that it was in. She gave credence to his name, and she rebuked Barak for having doubt. So let us be unwavering and assured of God's protection in our daily lives, just as Deborah was. And let us not wait around for incredible people to do incredible things, because the Lord can use us unassuming individuals of just a simple stock, to do his will. All right. He did it with the 12 apostles. All right, David was nothing more than a shepherd, and he lifted him up to slay Goliath and to be a king. All right, there's nothing miraculous about us yet. With the Lord's guidance, there's nothing that we can't do. All right, so I thank you so much for your time. I pray that you join us again, and in our next episode, we'll discuss the judge Gideon. In the meantime, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and please tell your friends. You all have a good day. Bye.